Thanks so much for joining us. We are the Massie twins from GoneWithTheTwins.com, and today we will be doing a review on, well, a little bit of Vampire Lovers, but primarily
Lust for a Vampire.
Lust for a Vampire. Yeah,
this is a time in the Hammer horror film studios career where they tried to make the films a little bit edgier, a little bloodier, a little more nudity, that kind of thing.
And this is so the first film in the what is the kind of an unofficial Karnstein trilogy is Vampire Lovers.
They're not connected story-wise so much.
Yeah,
it's really just taking the Karnstein vampire name.
which is an adaptation of a well, at the time, a fairly well-known story about Carmilla, a vampire. And so Vampire Lovers, which starred Ingrid Pitt, was the first one, and then we just recently watched Lust for a Vampire, which is the follow-up. And the interesting thing to me about this, even though it's kind of a direct sequel in some degrees, or in some ways, they couldn't get Ingrid Pitt. She dropped out of it. And Peter Cushing was supposed to return, but his wife got sick, so he dropped out of it. And then the director, Terrence Fisher, also dropped out of it, so they had to get Sangster, was it Jimmy Sangster? Yeah, to replace him. So the entire returning cast that should have been a bigger link to the continuation of this series has been completely replaced.
And the film suffers a little bit for that, I think.
Oh, I think so, for sure, yeah. I enjoyed Vampire Lovers a lot more. It's an equally low-budget, cheesy sort of a film from Hammer. It's kind of what you expect from this era, but this one decreases a little bit in the, the dialogue stays about as bad as it has been, but the acting's gotten a little bit worse. We've got some interesting sets, but it's all studio type stuff.
Everything is extremely cheesy, and it's unintentional.
Here, I think it gets even more silly because there's a song called "Strange Love" that plays during like a sex scene, love scene thing, and it's very, very awkward, but it's unintentionally funny, which I think gives it a little bit of a boost, because in these kinds of Hammer films, you have to go in with the right mindset, and it becomes funnier when there's unintentional humor, unintentionally.
But they are putting in blood and gore and nudity and the things that are sort of a staple.
And
of
right
this
off the
time
bat, there's a lot of very funny sorts of gratuitous nudity. There's a massage scene where the woman's dress accidentally
just
falls off. Yeah, so this is an exploitative sort of a film.
And they've kind of replaced all of the really well-known actors of the genre, like Peter Cushing, with people who can't act very well at all.
Right.
Now, there is one character, there's a policeman in it, who kind of shows that there are decent actors out there, but they aren't in this film.
Well, and as far as the story goes, this is almost a duplicate of the original story of Vampire Lovers, in which a reincarnated woman becomes a vampire, and she goes around killing young virgins.
The Karnstein family are vampires, and they reincarnate their daughter into the body of a young girl.
And then, once again, we're set in a village just below the Karnstein castle, and the young virgins start disappearing, and the bodies turn up with bite marks in their neck. And
at the local town, there's a writer who's doing research on the occult and witchcraft and things like that, and he stumbles upon the villagers' extreme fear of this Karnstein family, and he goes to the castle himself to investigate, and there he discovers what he thinks are maybe vampires, but it turns out it's a girls' school that has been started there.
And eventually he lusts after a vampire. So the title comes into play. One of the most silly, comical, absurd elements at the beginning is when they first introduce, his name is Richard Lestrange, is the character, and he's eating lunch at a pub, and he's told by the shopkeeper there about the Karnstein legends and the superstitions, and he says, well, I'll go up there and investigate myself, but after lunch. He has to finish his meal before he goes and investigates these vampires. So it's just a all around very silly film.
For me, a lot of the humor, which is unintentional, comes from the way these sort of films used to try and build suspense, used to try and build tension, and you get a lot of quick zoom-ins to things that are supposed to be shocking, but they really aren't. You get a lot of these trumpet blares when there's supposed to be something that's supposed to shock you, a jump scare of sorts, kind of before they actually had a handle on how to really make those things scary. So it just comes off as funny. And
you can only
laugh out loud.
You can only watch them zoom in on a woman's mouth as she's about to scream or as she's screaming before it just gets so silly. But again,
in the overall, in the genre, in the catalog of Hammer horror films, I kind of place this one a little higher, simply because they do deliver on the body count and the blood and gore and the nudity.
Honestly,
and
it makes more sense than films like Lost Continent and some of the other earlier Hammer films. And I like the edginess of trying to obtain that R rating. They were all rated X in the UK, but here the early ones, when they translated over to the United States, they became PG, and this one gets the R rating. So it's just a hair edgier than some of the other ones. And I think it being a cheesy sort of a horror film, it benefits from that. But all in all, I think it was entertaining.
It's still entertaining in a way that's not the way it was intended to be.
Right.
But you can read the full review on GoneWithTheTwins.com. And thanks so much for watching. We will be back with another movie review before you know it.